Ah, summer on the front porch. What a lazy afternoon. This brings back memories of all those times I sat on my Grandma Driscoll's front porch knitting scarves. Well, this new quilt is as fresh as it can be. It just goes perfect on this white porch railing. Well, the quilt is called Summer Porch. Chris Levine used soft pastels in her beautiful quilt. She has fabric in yellow, blue, pink, and green. Oh, they're just splashing across the quilt. Well, Chris dug into her collection of fat quarters and added this refreshing light for lattice to complete the scene. You know, she's very organized. So she set the same blocks together in groups of 4. Actually, it's very relaxing to look at. It's very nice. Well, Sue Bouchard likes the scrappy look. So she made her blocks the same way, but she mixed them up when she set them together. Well, the colors look like summer's over and the leaves are beginning to turn. Well, she did beautiful quilting in the triangles and along the border. Well, talk about scrappy. Just take a look at the back. Well, she loves to piece everything together that's left over into the backing so she can start out with fresh fabric on a new project. Well, speaking of projects, it's time to get started. I have my fat quarters ready to go for the beautiful summer porch. Oh, it's just a breath of fresh air. Well, the blocks are wonderful and scrappy colors. And you know, when I buy fat quarters, I always forget to pick up a wider piece for the borders, but there's no need to on this quilt because you actually use those same fat quarters for the border rectangles. How easy is that? Now there's a number of lattice in this quilt. You just need to buy one background fabric for all the lattice. Well, let's start with the block itself. You square it to 8 inches and that lattice going right through that block, it's simple. It's called the block lattice. Well, that makes sense. And then surrounding those blocks, going up and down, the vertical lattice, and they're 8 inches tall. And the last lattice we need are those horizontal pieces running through those rows just to put it all together. Well, Amy did such wonderful quilting on it. That's a really cute little swirl on the block lattice, and look at the block itself. Nice triangular free motion quilting, and the border is just so charming. She put little flowers all around it. I guess for summer porch, that would work for me. Just wonderful quilting throughout. Well, you know, cutting fat quarters can go really quick for you. So I have my fat quarters all stacked up. I want to show you how to do it. For a wall hanging, you need 8 fat quarters. So I've got 4 here and 4 ready to cut. You might as well layer just to get it done fast. So I put the cut edge right along here. The salvage is up on this end. The first thing that I want to do is just square off that left edge. Just take that, get rid of it. How about a scrappy binding? Well, if you cut a 3-inch wide strip from all of these pieces, you don't even need to have another piece for the binding. So scrappy binding, I'm going to set that aside. The border rectangles are also cut in 3-inch strips, so I'm just going to cut that, going good, and then they are cut 3 inches by 8 inches long. So let's just cut right along here. Out of each one of the fat quarters, you're going to cut 2. So look at that, just a little bit left. You can get rid of that, save it for another quilt. Now all that's left is a strip for 8-inch wide blocks. So just get that set up. My ruler is 6 inches, so I'm just going to add 2 inches to it and cut along there. Oh, you've got a nice big hunk for something else. Okay, once you get this 8-inch strip cut, then you can switch to a 9.5-inch ruler, line that up, cut 8-inch squares along like this. And once, twice, get 2 out of each piece. And then once they're layered like that, Don't move them around, but take your longer ruler and cut on one diagonal. Now, how fast is that? Keep these in separate piles. You want to just cut all of them on the diagonal and then just stack them up and they're ready to go. Let me get the lattice for you. There are so many 1.5-inch lattice strips to cut that if you don't do it quickly, you'll be bored with the quilt before you're done cutting. Well, I'm putting little tape along this ruler every 1.5 inches. And so once I get going, there is no stopping. I don't even have to think. That's what I like. Now, take the line along the ruler. Line it up with your folded edge on your fabric. It's folded in half. You want to have a little bit of fabric to the left of 0 so you can straighten that whole piece and just take that, get rid of it. Now you just start cutting every 1.5 inches. Just keep track, move right along there. You need to have a total of 16 for your wall hanging, and you actually are going to set aside 5 for your horizontal lattice. Let me just lift this away. Okay, so horizontal, no cuts, salvage to salvage, set 5 away. This is good. I'm just going to show you the rest. Now, move this out of the way and open these up. Keep it all nice and flat right on your cutting mat. Don't move anything because you can get a ton of layer cutting done. Whoops. Let me just straighten that up. Okay, next take a 12.5-inch square up ruler. There is a fold right along here on the edge. So the first thing you want to do is just cut off the fold. Get rid of that. And then measure over 11.5 inches. That is the measurement for your block lattice. And then one more time, move that out of the way. You need to have an 8-inch cut for your vertical lattice. Get that all lined up. Cut that off, just got a little left, get rid of that. Now, those are 2 lattice. There's one more lattice that you need, and that one is actually 3 inches, and that is for your little border rectangle. So just do the same thing, square off right here, and just cut 3-inch long pieces and you'll be set to go. You need to have 16, 11.5-inch, 28-inch, and 10 3-inch. I'm going to set this up and get those blocks done. These blocks are a summer breeze to make. Just lay them out, the 2 stacks of triangles with the 11.5-inch lattice right in the middle. Take the right stack, set it aside, don't even look at it. We're just going to focus on these 2 stacks. Okay, turn all your lattice right side up. These are all right side up too. Take the lattice and flip it right sides together to the triangle. Oh, and this is so easy. All you have to do is match up the top of both the lattice and the triangle. You're ready for sewing. It is a 1/4-inch seam, 15 stitches to the inch, or 2.0 on a computerized machine. Now you don't want to use a generous 1/4 inch on this. Just make sure it's a good 1/4 inch, even 1 thread scant of a 1/4, and that would be fine. So it's just good old power sewing, pedal to the metal. You're just going to go right through this whole stack, flipping that lattice right sides together to the triangle. Now the reason that I'm sewing the triangle on the bottom is because there is a bias stretch there. You don't want it stretching out. I think 2 are going to be good to show you the next step. So just cut those threads, take it to the iron. Now set the seam with the triangle on the top. Just turn it over, set that seam, and then lift and press so that the seam is behind the triangle. Oh my gosh, this is so easy to do. Beautiful already. So basically, we went down this whole 2 stacks already. I am moving, I'll tell you. So you just want to clip these apart and stack them up. Now, we're going to go to the next stack. And so you don't sew the same pieces on the other side. Maybe we'll just take one, put it underneath. That looks good. So I'm just going to take this piece and flip it right sides together. Line up those edges. Let me guess, just get one. Oh, they're sticking together. Line up those edges and just sew right down along there. Once again, with that triangle on the bottom. Now, it would be really good at this time if these little points would just line up. And that would be perfect. You don't want to put the same fabrics opposite each other. Keep some variety in your pieces because you're going to be moving them around. And you don't want to always make the same looking blocks. Scrappy. This is good. This is going to look nice like that. You know, I always have trouble with scrappy. People think that scrappy is the easiest thing to do. But oh my gosh, you start thinking about it too much and you just go, no, I don't want those two together. I have found no matter how hard I struggle, when I lay the whole quilt out, you don't even notice it. Pretty amazing. Now it's the same thing. You're going to put the triangle on the top, set the seam with the triangle on the top, and then just open and press right into the triangle. Oh, I love that white lattice. It's so fresh looking. Now, we're going to square up these blocks. They are a little oversized. It's so much easier if you make them oversized and then just trim them back. They should trim back to about 8 inches. So I helped myself out and put a 1-inch strip of tape right along that diagonal line on my 9.5-inch ruler. Should be about 1 inch, the same width as that piece of fabric. Oh, perfect. So I'm just going to drop that tape right on there and check it out. Oh my gosh, got it bigger than 8 inches the whole way around. So just hold your ruler steady, trim right and top. Just take these pieces, get rid of them. Now lift up the ruler, but don't turn it. Turn the block so that you have the 2 sides that you have not trimmed yet on the top and the right. And this time put 8 inches right along those fresh cut edges. Perfect. And trim off those 2 sides and you have a perfect block. Well, I'm going to go back, get all these blocks sewn, and I'll show you how to lay out the top. You have to have a design wall. When you're working with scrappy blocks, then you can place your blocks out, step back, take a look, move them all around until you get it perfect. Well, this design wall has soundboard as a base, and then headliner is glued to the top of it. It's kind of a spongy fabric. Well, with the soundboard, you can go ahead and stick pins right into it, hold up a big quilt if you want, or you can just take your fabric piece, lay it on there, and it will adhere. It just works out perfect. Well, I started here with 4 blocks. These were the first ones that I laid out, turned all 4 into the center, and then I just kept on building upon that and laid out 4 sets of 4. And then those border rectangles come next, all around the outside edge. Work hard and try not to put the same fabrics next to each other. The ones that you really need to watch are the dominant fabrics, like this dark green. Spread them out throughout the quilt. Now, I know you're laughing at me. You said, oh, Al, you didn't have to mark those rows. Trust me, I have done it with and without. Well, I put little tags all across the top of my vertical rows. This is row 1, the vertical row, row 2, row 3, the whole way across. Well, I thought I could get away with just marking the vertical rows. Oh my gosh, did I get messed up? So now I also mark this first vertical row the whole way down so that when I'm done, I can get them back into order. Well, I always sew from top to bottom with my vertical rows. So I'm just going to go ahead and collect this first vertical row and assembly line sew it. And then so I can go ahead and just show you while I'm sitting at the sewing machine, I'm going to collect the second vertical row and I am taken off. Well, with these tags in the top, then I can go ahead and actually sew straight down and not get them mixed up. This is row 1 right here. I'm just going to take the first vertical row. I have my 3-inch lattice and my 8-inch lattice. And all I'm going to do is just take that first 3-inch lattice, flip the 3-inch right sides together. It's pretty obvious if it's a 3-inch or an 8-inch. You'll know the difference. And so all I'm going to do is just start sewing right down here, then take the second one and flip the correct lattice right sides together to it, and just keep on sewing straight down, connecting them together. Let me just get this one done, and I'll do one more, and then I'll show you how to open it up and just keep it going. Those tags are pretty cool. It's the first time I ever used them. My sister Patty did the same thing. She said, I don't need tags. Oh my gosh, what a confused mess that we got into. Okay, you're just going to sew and join your vertical rows together. Cut those at the end. I'm going to pick up row 2 and just put it right here at my machine. And then all you have to do is just flip those right over and start going down the vertical rows. Let me pull that tag out of the way. Okay, so open that up, and that's perfect. Open this up, take this block, flip it right sides together to it, and you just keep on going. Well, as soon as I get all of my vertical rows sewn together, then I'm going to press all of my seams toward the lattice, and I'll show you how those rows look. I have been jamming. I sewed all of my vertical rows together, and then I cut the threads connecting them together right through each row. Next thing I did was press all of the lattice, and the blocks lay so nice. I just went right through here and pressed all those seams flat away from the lattice. They're just perfect. The next thing I need to do is take my 1.5-inch lattice strips, my horizontal lattice, and put that in between each of the rows. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure I've got continuous lines from top to bottom. That'll be perfect. And you know, these little tags really helped me keep it all straight. It's truly amazing. Well, next I have to do my layering and quilting. And I talked to you about that scrappy binding. It's going to be such a great finish. I took all of those 3-inch strips, trimmed off the salvage edges, and pieced them all together into one long piece. And then I just folded them in half, wrong sides together, and rolled them up. Ooh, I've got this great roll ready to go. And just put a pin in it. Now, whenever I get a chance, on some fine summer day, I know I'm going to put on this binding. So I don't get it all twisted up. I'm just going to take a rope or cord, anything like this. Going to work just fine. Put it right through the middle of the roll of binding. Tie it, and I am just going to put this around my neck. And as I quilt, as I add my binding, I'm just going to conveniently roll it right off the end, and no messy binding. And in the end, I'll have a beautiful summer porch. From front porch to stained glass, this quilt is just beautiful. Now, Sue Bouchard did this with just little 4-inch squares cut on the diagonal and 1-inch by 6-inch black strips in the blocks. It's just so charming. I'm going to pick up all those pieces I threw on the floor because I think I could make this quilt. Well, this is magnificent in this size, but it's even more magnificent in the full size. Just beautiful. Now, you need to select your fabrics. You will need to have 3 dark blues, 3 different light blues, 3 different greens, and only 1 red. And from each one of those pieces, cut 4 8-inch squares. And then it's exactly the same technique. Cut those squares on the diagonal. Now, you really need to lay this out and arrange it before you start sewing your blocks together. Well, I recommend that you just start right in the very center. Well, I have 2 of my red squares cut. So let's just start and build from the center and work outwards. Something like this. Just lay out your blocks. Oh, and that design wall is really going to help you again. So lay out your 4 reds or whatever color you want to put in the center. They actually are all mirror image of each other. And then pick the blues, and you'll see as you go along, when you run out of one set of fabrics, you've just got to go to another. And let's just put these fabrics like this opposite each other. And then how about these like this right here and here? Well, get it all laid out. These are the only ones not sewn together, but get it all laid out, and then take your lattice and work on the 4 that are identical and get those strips set in there in between, square them up, and just keep on laying them out until you get the beautiful stained glass quilt. The finished stained glass quilt is spectacular. Just imagine this quilt filling an empty wall in a modern decor home. Oh, magnificent. Well, Teresa used rich jewel tone fabrics and deep purple lattice to set off her blocks. It's just wonderful. Well, Jenna Mitchell quilted triangular feathers in the blocks, and then she used the same color of thread in the bobbin as she used on the top. So when you turn it over, a pattern is created on the back as well. There's 2 quilts in one. You now have a whole cloth quilt. Just beautiful. Well, just by changing the fabric, you can change so many things. Lois Bresloff created an orchid garden with only 4 tropical prints and garden green lattice. Well, the fabric had a stripe along one edge, so Lois cut up the stripe for the border rectangles. Pretty clever, huh? Well, she always does her own quilting, and you can see her talent on the back side. It's also a work of art. Well, to anchor the layers together, Lois stitched in the ditch along the lattice, added feathers in the border, and then free motion quilting in the blocks. It's wonderful. These are her signature colors. She just loves bright. Well, at a trade show, I purchased a big fat quarter bundle of coordinated pastel prints, and I used them for this cheery summer quilt for my bedroom, and I call my quilt Ice Cream Social. It's just so cute. Well, she used variegated thread in the wide white border to just quilt a trailing vine with free-flowing flowers. Just wonderful. You know, there were several striped pieces included with that fat quarter pack, and I didn't want to use the stripes in the blocks, but cut on the bias, stripes are very charming as the binding. Oh, I just love the way this quilt looks in my bedroom. Just brightens the whole room. Well, I have Summer Porch in the other 3 seasons to share with you. Well, in this spring quilt, ooh, I used bright blues and yellows. I remember my sisters and I playing dress up in Mother's old clothes on the front porch. We always just had so much fun in the yellows, the blue checked, oh, green, willow green, and then that fresh white around the outside edge. Wonderful, very springy looking. Well, when the leaves turned to fall, my father would just rake up a big pile. Well, we just loved it. My sisters and I would just get on that front porch and jump into that pile of leaves. We'd bury my brother. It was just too much fun. Well, in this quilt, I love the rich plum, the cinnamon, green check. Oh, and it's all set off with burnt sugar lattice. Well, Jenna Mitchell also did the quilting in this one. Beautiful feathers along the border. Just wonderful. Well, for me, winter means gathering my family around for the holidays. Perfect. Well, I chose scarlet, green, and black for my lap quilt. And I just set off the blocks with the beige lattice and border. Perfect. Well, I love to display holiday quilts in my home. They just have so much warmth and charm. Just great. So no matter what the season, enjoy making your summer porch.